Hello humans, it's just Martine, and today I'm going to be doing the Persuasion Book Tag. I was graciously tagged in this book tag by Amy from A Star Reads because we buddy read Persuasion together. Was it all the way back in May that we did that? Anyway, it was a fantastic experience. Now I'm doing the related book tag, so thanks Amy. Her channel is linked down below, as is the original video of this and the questions in case you either want to follow along or you want to do this tag in the future. Let's get into it. Question 1. Persuasion, like many Jane Austen books, has been successfully adapted to the screen many times over. So this prompt is to name your beloved book-to-screen adaptation of a book written before 1900. And for this prompt, I'm going with Dorian Gray, the 2009 movie. I have a very specific relationship with this film. In my Monsters in Fiction class, our third unit was Other Selves. And as part of my honors portion of this class, I chose the other works that I'd be interacting with. And for the unit of Other Selves, I decided to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'd always wanted to. For the films I would watch, I chose an older version of an on-screen adaptation of The Picture of Dorian Gray, and then I watched this 2009 version. The older version of the film that I watched was obviously like a great adaptation, very true to the book and stuff. And I'm not saying that this 2009 adaptation was not true to the book, because it was, but also it was just so phenomenally done, and it showed how, oh my goodness, what is his name, Lord Henry or something? Anyway, how this one character really turns Dorian towards doing all these bad things and is a bad influence and doesn't realize his impact on Dorian and the person that he's helped Dorian to become until it's like way too late. It's fantastic. I recommend it, especially if you are familiar with The Picture of Dorian Gray. It's just such a good movie. Question 2. In Persuasion, Anne and Captain Wentworth, those are the two main characters, really go through the ringer. So what's your favorite angsty romance that isn't them? And for this, in my notes, when I was planning out my responses to things, I went back and forth with myself for such a long time. I was like, does it count as an angsty romance if they don't end up together? In which case, Joe and Laurie from Little Women, just because, like, love them. But I was like, if that doesn't count, then something like, I don't know, Simon and his love interest from Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, or like anything from the first 2 books of the Bromance Book Club. I haven't gotten to read the third one yet, that's why I didn't include the third one. But then I was struck as if by lightning by the reminder, the sheer reminder of the book The Duke Who Didn't. I read this book at Bailey's recommendation from Is Bailey Reading when we exchanged books that we really loved. It took turns reading them for videos, and I chose this one for Bailey, and it's pretty difficult for a romance book to be 5 stars for me, but it was an easy 5 stars to give. The banter, the like tension, the knowing, it's angsty, but like it's great. I can't put into words how much I loved my experience of reading that book. I chose the characters from that, who, of course, I don't remember their names. I remember things about books, am I right? Question 3. Captain Wentworth is a naval captain. So, tell us about a book with a lead character who's in a branch of the military. So, again, I had difficulty with this question. I was thinking about the fact that most of the books that I read that would involve people in any branch of the military of some kind are going to be like fantasy or sci-fi books, in which case I've got a lot of popular favorites that you've probably already heard of, like Illuminae or Ender's Game. So instead, I'm kind of shifting this question to talk about books that have a war focus maybe you haven't heard of, or a character who's been affected by the war specifically. So I'm choosing the book My Family for the War by Anne Voorhoef. I think it's a translated work. But anyway, it's this book about this little girl who she grows up Catholic, I believe, but her family ancestrally is Jewish, like all the way down. And so when World War II breaks out and Jewish people start being targeted, her family starts being targeted, and they decide to send her away to live with a Jewish family in a safer region. And so she goes and she starts living with a Jewish family, and she has questions about her faith and stuff. You know, she grew up Catholic, but now she's in a very Jewish family, just how the war is affecting her. And anyway, I thought it was a brilliant book, but I'd never heard of it before. Question 4. British naval captains are very adventurous and famous adventurers. So what's your favorite adventure story? I don't tend to read, I would say, many adventure stories because they don't fit in most of my favorite genres, but I'm picking book 3 from the Outlander series, which is Voyager. If you want something not really like piratey, but like naval, exploratory, adventurous, high stakes, very interesting. That was my favorite book so far in the Outlander series, and it was high in adventure and intrigue, so I loved it. If you want a reason to like push through book 2 specifically, because book 2 was an absolute drag and my least favorite so far, know that I loved book 3. Question 5. Anne is quite a dutiful sister. So what's your favorite literary sibling relationship? And I had 2 answers. I would say for older fiction, the sisters in Little Women, because come on, they're iconic. But for more contemporary, I chose the brother-sister twin set from Pumpkin because they gave me life. And I didn't read that book because I knew there were twins in it, and yet it's one of the books I've read most recently that like gets how it feels to be a twin. So, loved them, loved that. Question 6. By the standards of the time, Anne was a spinster. So what is a book with a female lead who's a slightly older woman? And this brought up like an interesting conversation for me because there are any number of books that I could have listed, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about the distinct differences between the Outlander book series and the Outlander television series. And one of the biggest ones for me was the age difference between the 2 main characters. In the book, she is like 27, which is not old or anything. But when she travels back in time and her love interest is like young 20s, that is a huge deal. And in the time, she seems very old and spinsterly in comparison to everybody else. In the television series, they're much closer together and she's younger, and I honestly think that ruins some of the like reasoning behind their marriage. Like, that's not the reason that they get married in the book series, but I would say that it contributes to the dynamics a lot. So anyway, I was just pleased to find that out. Nobody cares but me, but I care, so. Question 7. Persuasion is one of the most critiqued or referenced books in English literature. Name a book whose plot or central themes or ideas reference another book. So I have 3 different answers from this. I was like, does the Lunar Chronicles count? Because it's referencing all these old fairy tales and these old stories. So I definitely think it does count. But I was like, that's very commonly known. So is the next book I'm about to talk about. Automatically my brain was like, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Isn't that an allegory for the Bible? So that references another book. My mind was going crazy trying to answer these questions. Anyway, so I finally settled on, I believe it's called Meg and Joe, which is a modern retelling of Little Women, and I enjoyed it. It uses most of the same characters, but in different settings. So if I'm remembering correctly, which I definitely might not be, Joe, instead of a writer, she might still want to be a writer. Anyway, she ends up working in a restaurant is the whole point. And then I forget what happens from there, but lots of cooking involved, I think. Oh my goodness, am I even remembering this correctly? I totally forget what's happening with Meg at the time, but I promise it is interesting. I just don't remember the books that I read. If you're looking for another retelling, especially of Little Women, give that one a try. Question 8. Captain Wentworth made his fortune at sea. Tell us about a book with a self-made lead character. Self-made lead character. I think I said that. I chose Ready Player 2. Hear me out. I know Ready Player 1 was really popular, and then people were like, there's no need for a sequel. And listen, I get that completely. I didn't think plot-wise there was a need for a sequel, but I was excited when a sequel was announced. And can I just tell you that my experience reading Ready Player 2 was like phenomenal. Especially, here's the thing, if you are okay with listening to audiobooks at all, I would recommend listening to the audiobooks for both Ready Player 1 and Ready Player 2, because both of them are narrated by Will Wheaton, and I don't know why, but it gave me so much life. So do I think that enhanced the experience? Some, at least, yes, definitely. But I also thought it was a fantastic book and fantastic companion, and played with some ideas as a direct result of the ending of book 1. I'm counting it, just because I wanted to jump on the discourse about Ready Player 2. Question 9. Persuasion has a lot to say about traditional gender roles. So what's a book that plays with traditional gender roles? Of course, this first book was really popular in book 2, and then when book 2 came out, I heard that people were excited to read it, but then I don't know if they ever did. I was obsessed with this duology, and especially with the main character of the second book, who was just a secondary character in the first book. But either of the 2 books from the Montague siblings series plays with gender roles an insane amount. So you have, in the first book, Percy's the love interest. What is the main character's name? Monty! Yeah, so Monty is, I think, bisexual. He hates all the things that he has to do in his traditionally, like, male role, head of the household, all that stuff. He hates all the roles in general that are positioned onto his shoulders. And then you have his sister Felicity, who in some ways appears to follow along with gender roles. Like, she's a bit out there, but for the most part, she just kind of keeps to herself and reads what they assume to be romance books. Anyway, the point is that throughout the course of this series, once Felicity steps outside of her father's home, you realize the type of person that she actually is, and she absolutely hates traditional female gender roles. She wants to be a doctor, she likes to learn things, she's just absolutely awesome, like willing to get in there, get dirty, and I also believe she's ace. Neither one of those siblings gives any type of F's about traditional gender norms, and that's why I love them, especially positioning them in a historical setting. Brilliant. And then question 10 is optional. It's like, tell us a little bit of trivia about you and Jane Austen or Persuasion or whatever. All I will say is that I've only read one Jane Austen book so far. I hope to change that in the future, but it is Persuasion. So thanks to Amy for helping me along with my first Jane Austen experience. What a ride. And then question 11, tag people. I'm not going to tag anybody because I don't know who would want to do this tag, but if you do want to do this tag, you want to say I tagged you, please feel free. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below your answers to these questions if you have them, or thoughts about my answers if you have them, and subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!